All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. And, well, I'm going to have to come up with a more creative way to do the intros. I mean, you guys already know who we're talking about, right? Or who we're talking with. You read the title. You know what is going down for this episode. So lots of big news coming up. Lots of stuff going down. I got a whole calendar. I'm recording this, man, somewhere in September, and you guys aren't going to be hearing this all the way into October. I'm blaming it on Lizzie and her hard work in getting everybody coordinated. Absolutely excited about that. A lot of great guests recently and coming up. So, some big news in the rally world. I am holding tight on to that. You guys probably already know, but we'll leave it at that for now. Because, well, we are going to have to hang tight. You don't want to release things and then the episode's kind of floating out there. You're talking about stuff that's future stuff that's in the back, all sorts of fun stuff. But today's episode, we are talking to none other than Nathan Rafferty, finishing up one of his recent moto trips. Actually, literally just finished it up yesterday. And we're going to be talking to him today a little bit about that trip and some of his past, man. Nathan has gone all over the world doing some rally stuff. Also, you may or may not know the name if you remember correctly. If I'm remembering correctly, he does have a little something to do with double take mirrors. So maybe we'll talk about that as well. Who knows, right? We don't pre-plan the conversations. As a matter of fact, I only told him I was going to give him a call. We didn't talk anything. No pre-questions, no nothing. So, let me scroll through the contacts here. Look him up. We're going to give him a phone call. Hey, did you guys sign up already for the newsletter? Have you been to the website? Signed up for the Bivouac newsletter? ChasingWaypoints.com. Scroll on down. You'll see the link there. You'll see the little thing there. Sign up for the Bivouac newsletter. We're working on putting it together. The first edition going to be releasing soon. We're trying to get some stuff in there for you guys. Has the benefit of signing up and being part of and being in the newsletter. So, hope you guys are checking that out or have checked that out. But if not, what are you waiting for exactly? All right, let's turn the party down just a little bit here. Let's hit the dial. Let's get him on the telephone.
Victor.
Nathan, good morning, sir.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Decided to do a podcast today.
Yeah, right.
Talk adventures.
Sure, why not?
So, I know you literally just finished your ride, yesterday?
Yeah, last night.
Nice. So, how are you feeling this morning? A little bit more recuperated? Are you in a hurry to get back on the bike?
Yeah, no hurry to get back on the bike. But it wasn't actually a taxing physically or too mentally kind of ride. So I feel pretty good, just getting caught up on work and stuff. But I think my ears are ringing a little bit, sit on the bike for 10, 12 hours a day for 6 days straight. And, my brain buzzes for a little bit after that. So just getting it together.
Yeah. So you're sitting still, but your brain is still doing $6,000.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, I hear you. What totally random question? What helmet do you ride?
I was riding for this one an Arai XD4, nice. Which I haven't ridden in quite a while. I use the motocross helmet from Arai, and those guys have been really good to me. But Arai just fits really well, and like the style and everything about it. But I tried that dual sporty helmet only because I knew my speeds were going to be higher, and I wanted a little bit less, a little bit better aero. And thought that shield would come in handy if it rained or something, but you know what? I never used it and kind of had goggles on the whole time.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it's kind of nice that you can do both on that helmet.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't changed their styles in a while, but I don't know. There's just styles are so good and it fits so well, and I have a lot of confidence in that Arai helmets.
Yeah. I made that mistake back when I worked at BMW Motorcycles. I'm going, I'm going to go see what one of these expensive helmets feels like.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well,
worth it.
You get one brain, you can maybe skimp out on the elbow pads or something. But, if I'm going to spend money on any of the protective stuff, it's going to be for my head.
Yeah, for sure. No. And yeah, like you said, I mean, the helmet, the fit of the helmet is just crazy. I mean, it literally feels like they flew you out, measured your head. And even though it's just off the shelf, which is crazy.
I know. That's why I've really never tried anything else. 'Cause I've had bicycle helmets and other stuff that doesn't quite fit just right. And when your head's in that helmet for 10, 12 hours a day, man, it better fit right. And, I got no complaints from the Arai stuff.
Oh yeah. I remember I remember guys would come in and they had to wear a Schuberth helmet, BMW, because Schuberth, and they put it on and I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt.
Yeah.
But they want their Schuberth.
Yeah. No, you find something you like and you stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me a little about you sent me the link on the spot wall of what you just finished doing on your ride. Tell me a little bit about what did you do?
Yeah. Well, I'm famous for coming up with dumb ideas, and this was one of them for sure. Last year I rode a cross country, all dirt Trans Am trail, kind of trying to set a bar for, the fastest time. And that's another podcast. But, this one was, I wanted to ride from, my home in Park City, Utah to a place out here in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. And see if I could do it with no map and no GPS. Just cause I feel like I've gotten so used to following that little blue line, which is awesome because, so much of the thinking is taken care of for you. And I really like doing the BDRs and stuff that's all sussed out. And you're not worried about, where you're going so much. And so I just thought it would be a fun exercise to see if I could do it. I did have a little bit of navigation in that I had one waypoint in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and have an arrow pointed straight that way, which at first seemed like a good idea, but I also quickly realized that straight line goes through the middle of the Great Lakes. So I had to kind of sort out how far east I go and then figure out a plan from there, and had very loose plan, which was basically go 90 degrees until I hit the Pennsylvania border. And then from there, I knew I could go north until I hit finally a road that didn't go just east or just south or west, but went northeast. And that was Route 2. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of had to figure it out from there. And Route 2 is cool, but it's kind of busy, lots of traffic. And I find myself kind of going stir crazy on those things. So I hopped off that thing sooner than I thought I was going to. But it was a fun experience. And, the closer you get, the navigation is really pretty easy in the middle of the country. You're either going east or you're going north or south, and you kind of checkerboard your way out. But once you hit the mountains, there's, your decision making is much more consequential because one road might take you, it's got to get around these mountains. I got stuck behind some huge lake yesterday that took me, it felt like, for days to get around. And then the whole time you're second guessing, should I have gone the other way around it? But, eventually got in and made my way home.
That is nuts. I mean, it's you basically ran an HP section for 3/4 of the states.
Yeah, no, I kind of thought of it like a 2,500 mile HP dune section where, you kind of fix your eyes on the horizon and say, okay, I'm going over that way, and just, ride into the sun in the morning, ride away from the sun in the afternoon. And that sounds great until it's cloudy. And then you're like, but I had a Zumo XT up that I didn't I didn't have it on the map page. I had it on there's like a track log and it's got a compass. Okay. And early on, I also figured out, it was kind of threw me off. There are a bunch of cool apps that do the same thing, and they have an arrow that points you right to your direction. But I didn't realize until I was on the ride that your iPhone gets thrown off with either the metal of the bike or something electronic, and that whole plan went out the window. So I was out of luck there. But mid-ride, I called Chris Braun, that a lot of people know, like full rally book writing Jedi. He wrote a bunch of books for what used to be the Rocky Mountain Rally or Green River that is no longer, and then helps out with some of the Wyoming stuff too. But he's super, super knowledgeable with the tech side of the stuff. And he created a one-note 2,500 mile rally book for me that he dropped a pin in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. And then through Rally Nav Pro, I could pull up an arrow, and that wasn't affected by the internal compass in the iPhone that would go out of whack. At least when I was over 15 miles an hour, if I pulled up to a stoplight, it would go a little wacky, but, and I didn't really need it till, the last day or so anyway, because I kind of knew the direction I was going.
Yeah. It would kind of, that more or less, it would just point that direction.
Yeah. From Park City, I was 71 degrees is what I needed to aim at. And it slowly, moved a little bit as I got closer. And then towards the end, you're dodging and weaving through all the lakes and the mountains. And it was beautiful.
Yeah. And that's kind of awesome. And like you mentioned earlier, it's like, if I would have maybe gone the other way on this lake, it might have only been a 3-mile trip. But now it's,
Well, I look at that link, take a look and look at Lake George. And I came in at the bottom of it. And I guess I should have asked somebody, which way to go. And by the way, when I do ask a lot of people don't know squat about where they are, have no idea. They know where the grocery store is a couple blocks away, but you ask them like, where's Vermont? And they're like, oh, geez, don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought in the middle, I think a lot of people actually just don't have the opportunity to travel far away from where they live. Something I'm grateful that I've been able to do. But you ask people in the middle of the country and you're like, hey, how do you get to the next state over? And they're totally baffled. They have no idea. But yeah, take a look at that map and that link, and you'll see I came into Lake George on the south end and ended up riding felt like an hour north, where I could have totally just gone around the bottom, but had no idea.
Well, but it was the adventure part of it. So
yeah, that was the whole idea.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I'm looking at it now, and it's, dude, yeah, it was everywhere. And you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, well, we could have gone up a little higher, a little lower, but this is a pretty direct route considering that you were just using an arrow.
Yeah, mostly. And it was interesting. I'd talked to some people and asked directions, and right away whether people know what they're talking about or not. I actually stopped in Ticonderoga and ate a BLT in like 5 minutes, and the lady behind the counter at this little cafe said, hey, how do I get to Vermont from here? And she's, without missing a beat, she's like, down 22 to Whitehall, take a left, blah, 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 go here. And that gave me confidence. Sometimes I'd talk to people and they'd be like, oh, well, let's see. I went to Maine a few years ago. I think I went down that. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, thanks. See you. Cause they have no idea where they're going.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not messing with
Yeah.
Well,
no.
And I guess we see that everywhere too, right? I'm sure you've come across other guys in riding, right? That tell, oh yeah, just go up and around this way. It's actually pretty easy, and you get there and you're riding trials the whole way on an adventure bike. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? If you do rally enough, you learn to sniff out who knows what and really understand who the good navigators are and who aren't. And you learn that pretty quickly, and you want to hang with the people that know where they're going.
Generally speaking.
Yeah. Generally speaking.
Yeah. It's, I could see that in some cases, and I've, in the few road books I've done, I've already noticed that you can start to really quickly overthink a note.
Yeah.
And then
totally.
right off into the sunset.
Yeah. And there are all sorts of little telltale signs. And it was interesting doing this one where, I'd get bored and want to hop on smaller roads, which are way more interesting. But I'd get on one and go, this seems like one of those roads that might turn to dirt soon. And sure enough, you come around a corner and boom, you're into the dirt, and it's taking you a lot longer. So sometimes sticking on is finding that happy medium between the big, boring roads and the not too small, go nowhere roads, which made it pretty fun. And interestingly, the hardest part for me was avoiding the big cities, because generally speaking, these paved roads go towards the cities, and the cities are where I is where I really got slowed down. And you'd be going towards a big city and you don't know if you should be trying to go north of it or south of it or how to get around it. And because all the signs tell you how to get to the city, they don't tell you how not to get to the city. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I see that where out here in our area, we get the same thing. It's easy to get everywhere except to that one. Like, I don't want to go into the city. I want to go around, or I want to do this. You have to know the roads because the signs really don't help at all.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the map of what you did. And yeah, I mean, that is literally what happened. I mean, you could have gone south at Lake George, would have been right around it.
Totally.
But then again, you got to have that sandwich, talk to that person in Ticonderoga. And get there.
Yeah. And if, I was looking at a GPS, I would have, been able to go around some of the bigger cities that slowed me down a little bit. But, I just had no idea where I was half the time. I knew I was heading east, and that was about it.
Yeah, I was just I'm zooming out and I can see it. And yeah, you literally got kind of close to some of them, but I mean, otherwise you were way out of the normal towns. What was there a particular area in this whole thing that you're like, ooh, I'd come back here?
The Midwest and all these little tiny towns are so cool. I think, my head's on a swivel the whole time I'm going through, and wave to folks and stop and chat sometimes. And, Ohio was really nice, and just some spectacular farm areas. And I don't know what I'd do there if I'd went back, go for a nice road bike ride, on some of the nice roads, but, just farmland for miles and miles. And it kind of boggles my mind how much stuff we grow in the United States. I can't figure out where it all goes, because every square inch of that, Midwest area is a farm, it feels like. And 95% of it is corn. It's just beautiful. And then you get into the Northeast, and the Northeast really is pretty spectacular with all the lakes and rivers and mountains and all that stuff. But, I just like getting into that area that we fly over so much. And maybe one of my favorite things is sitting down and having a coffee in one of these teeny tiny towns with a little town square, and just kind of watching the day go by a little bit, and seeing what life is like in some of these small towns.
Yeah, kind of get the pace of life and everywhere.
Yeah. And for about 30 seconds, I think, gosh, someday I'd like to own a coffee shop on the plaza here in this small town. And then reality hits me and go, no, what am I thinking? I'd be so bored. But it would be, but it's kind of cool and fun to be a fly on the wall in some of those spots.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, people watch and just kind of hang out. And then obviously, the journey there.
Yeah. Yeah. And meet some really nice people, just some, super down to earth, just kind folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that was something you kind of mentioned. So are you already starting to catch up on work? Did work follow you already? Did they find you?
Yeah, they found me, and I kind of hopped in every night. I would hop off the bike, and, it wasn't like a race where you're just trying to, gotta eat, gotta sleep, get stuff ready for the next day. It was a little bit mellower pace. So I just hopped on my laptop, and wherever I went to eat, kind of catch up on some email for the day. And I was able to kind of stay in touch a little bit, but, this time of year it gets pretty busy for me. So, trying to stay on top of that stuff, and I've got a couple days to get caught up too.
Yeah, I hear you. But I mean, that's what we're getting into. Well, it's because we're getting into the riding season, right? For the most of the. Are you seasonal pretty much with what you do, or?
Yeah, so I work in the ski industry, and we do a lot of planning in the spring and summer, and this is just kind of when it's all coming together, and a lot of our planning moves into the execution phase and buying ads and getting people excited to go skiing. So we've already seen our first little skiff of snow in Utah, and feels like summer was so short this year. So, we're going to be skiing before we know it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was literally thinking that this morning. I'm going, it's already cloudy and like barely going to hit the 70s today in San Diego again. And but yeah, we were like 90.
Goes so fast.
Yeah, it's crazy. So so let's talk a little bit. So originally all of this, I met you and started flying in the circle of Rally Raid. Talk a little bit about your rally experience. How'd you get started in that?
Yeah. I got started late. I mean, I'm 52 now. I didn't buy my first motorcycle till I was 30. And then I went on a 40th birthday trip with a couple of my good buddies and my brother. And we went to Morocco to do kind of an off-road toured motorcycle trip. And it really opened my eyes to riding outside of the country. And one of the guys who was helping out with the tour was a guy named Edo Masi, who was leaving that trip to go start and write road books for what he called the Merzouga Rally. And I just thought, gosh, is that something I could do? And I talked to the guy who's the tour leader, and he's like, yeah, with a little training. And it kind of piqued my interest, and I started looking into rally. And so the very first rally I did was in Morocco, in that Merzouga Rally, and I just totally got my ass handed to me, and ended up finishing, but just found out that it was so much harder than I thought it was going to be. But I dug in and started doing some of the local stuff, and the bug just bit, and so and have done a ton of rallies, including Africa Eco Race was the first big one I did, the first marathon rally, which was 12 days, and from, I guess, technically started in France, but, start really riding in Morocco, and then Mauritania, and finish in Dakar, Senegal. And they bill it as the kind of the original Dakar route. And then I thought, I've done that, don't need to do any more, but you know how this goes. And a couple months go by and go, well, I don't know, Dakar Rally could be kind of cool. And ended up doing that 2019, and have done Abu Dhabi and more races in Morocco and Sonora and Baja and a bunch of others, but have really had some fun with it. And I'm like either the slow end of the fast guys or the fast end of the slow guys, however you look at it. But I really have fun, and you meet so many cool people like yourself, and just great people in that world, in that sport.
Yeah, it's kind of the rally family.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've got buddies. I've got buddies from one friend from Australia that I've raced with on, I think, 4 different continents. I don't know his wife. I've never been to his house. But, I've been with him in all over the world. And these are friendships that, never die.
Yeah, it's a bonding experience, I guess you could say, being lost together, out riding, trying to navigate the wild.
Yeah, for sure. Me and Kyle McCoy have become good buddies, and have raced in all sorts of different parts of the world. And, you just pick up the phone and pick up right where you left off. And it is for sure a fun scene.
Yeah. What is, I mean, in all of those, like they say now, and we've talked about it a few times, it's like, if you want to see the world, right, you know, just get into rally racing and that'll help. I mean, it'll shrink any budget or blow any budget.
Sure. for sure.
But you get to travel. But what was the, I mean, is there that one place you're like, I would run, if I could only run rally a year?
Yeah. You know, it's a hard question, but the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge is just unbelievable. You get to stay at a really cool place, which is awesome. You know, out in the middle of the sand dunes, and I love the sand. And I think Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge is like 100% sand dunes. I mean, I don't remember ever being on, well, maybe for a couple of kilometers of dirt road, but just these massive dunes, just like riding an ocean of sand dunes for days on end. And I love that. Just so fun. Yeah. So that's, if I could go back to one every year, that would be it. But it is a bit of a budget breaker too. So, you know, I'll be lucky if I can get back to that one in a couple of years.
I can imagine the flights and then getting a bike, you know, renting a bike or, well, I don't think you would transport a bike out there. It's probably just easier to rent one.
Huge pain. Yeah. And, you know, I've gone with the guys from Bass Dakar. Bart and his crew are just top shelf. And, you know, if you try to string this together on a budget, which you can do for sure, but the chances of things not going well for you, things breaking, race ending up, you know, being shortened because of that, or, you know, go up exponentially. So, you know, I've been lucky to go with the Bass guys and have never, knock on wood, never not finished a rally.
Nice. Well, that's not an easy record. I mean, everything is literally stacked against you in Rally Raid. Don't know where you're going. Can't get support.
Yeah. You know, I think riding, you know, I'm just old enough that I can understand riding within myself a little bit better. And, you know, having some mechanical sympathy too, and understanding that if you know, if your bike doesn't get to the end, you don't get to the end. And, you know, I'm not going to win anything that way, but I'll finish something. And if you get old enough, you get in this vet category where there are only 3 or 4 racers anyway. So you can, you know, almost guarantee yourself a spot on the quote unquote podium there. So there's that strategy as well.
Yeah, there you go. So this is something curious, right? I mean, a lot of the listeners, all that stuff, obviously you've already traveled the world. You've done several rallies and all that. What about the training and the beginning of this, like getting into road books and all of that stuff? Do you can you share your experience?
Yeah. You know, I think the best way to go is with some of these grassroots events, which are, you know, not really races, but they're more just kind of meetups and get-togethers where people are running road books. And it is a sport where it's, you know, you see it on TV and you go, that looks like the coolest thing in the world. But you have no idea how to get into it. And there are places to buy your Roy gear, like with Matthew and RMS, and that kind of can help you break into it at that lower level, and then going to either do a rally school and then one of these meetups, like you can in Wyoming with a bunch of guys, and you're just basically running road books for a long weekend. And then the next stage is to hop to either a Sonora rally, which is really well run, great event, or Baja rally, you know, super attainable for most folks. And, you know, I've dragged a couple friends into these things. They've all gotten their rally bug and, you know, are on their way for sure. And then once you can complete one of those 4 or 5 day events, then you can start thinking about some of the big international stuff. But that comes along with some significant cost and, but not totally, you know, not doable. And, you know, I go to some of these big events and, it's just not people with tons of money. It's people with a ton of passion who have figured out a way to make it work. And whether it's Abu Dhabi or the Morocco Desert Challenge or, you know, wherever, it's an experience that I'll never forget. And it's easy to sit on the couch and say, well, maybe I'll do it next year. But you just got to make a plan and get it done.
Yeah. So definitely the start small, seek out the.
Yeah, for sure. And actually at these bigger rallies, the navigation's less difficult because either cars and trucks are running it and there are more bikes in it. The navigation at some of these small grassroots events is way tougher than it is at Dakar, where you've got, at least I did, 50 bike tracks in front of me, and halfway through the cars are starting to pass me too. So, so the navigation is not that tough at the big events. Tougher for sure, the small stuff. When at Baja or at Sonora Rally, and I've only got 5 tracks in front of me, a little bit more difficult for sure.
Yeah, a little more challenging. And then I could see that where, especially if you get into an area that maybe gets ridden a lot by locals.
Yes.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, that gets spicy. We saw that in Sonora a little bit too, either local tracks or tracks from previous days. And that's where you really just got to pay attention to your compass heading. And you might even be just a couple degrees off of a track from the day before. And, you got to really look at those tracks too. And a day old set of tracks looks different than an hour, tracks that were set a couple minutes or an hour before you. So the wind and whatever does a little bit of work on them.
Yeah. You got to get, you have to get really good at reading the terrain.
Yeah, it helps for sure. But, I imagine, I don't speak another language, but I imagine it's kind of like that, where it just feels so daunting to read a road book at first. You're looking at this thing going, this all looks like Chinese characters to me. Mm-hmm. And then something just starts to click and you can just kind of really get in a groove. And it is totally easy to overthink it. And, I end up, when you used to have to mark road books, would mark them way too much. And then, towards the end of a 12-day rally, you're just barely marking it at all. And you get into a groove and feel the flow. And it's kind of magic.
Yeah. You're just going to highlight the dangers and then maybe the change of directions, right? Blue or red or whatever.
That's exactly right. And, you see a bunch of straight arrows, you can just kind of keep scrolling until you see a change in direction. And that's the way I've done it anyway. And it is easy to overthink all that stuff and, kind of stop at every tulip and overthink it. And, you just got to kind of go and put all these different hints together, whether it's dust in the air, landmarks, you name it. The drill.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's all these little things. I was talking to Mason after the SoCal rally, and I told that I don't know if this is. I kept struggling with. You navigate. Okay, you hit that corner. There's the corral. There's this. Okay, I know I'm on the right track, and then you're just gone. And then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, I don't even know where the next note is. So now you slow down again to read the road book, to reconcile everything after you've ridden, a kilometer or two. And he's like, no. Yeah. So, are there any strategies and things like in that particular case? He told me, once you are verifying that you've hit this note, you have to be looking at the next note because that's when you're still going slow and then you can speed up. So,
I'm never looking too far ahead but if I do feel a little lost, scrolling ahead a couple notes and you see, oh, look, there's some telephone poles in this note that's 3 notes ahead and you can see some telephone poles way ahead. You can almost skip, as long as there are no waypoints that you have to get, skip ahead a few and go, okay, I know I've got to be over by these telephone poles. You have to read a little bit more into it than just that one note that's right in front of you, that if all you're doing is staring at that, there can be a mistake in the road book, who knows what, but it's just kind of piecing together all these different clues, and it sounds so much more difficult than it really is. And I mean, trust me, there are times that it is difficult, but but I think it's just not as daunting as it first seems.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, if anything, I mean, looking at, I stare, in my studio, I stare at a road book from the 2017 Baja Rally, and, you look at it visually and as I am now, and it's like, okay, none of this makes sense. But if you were literally sitting at that corner, you would see everything. Yep. And so I guess that's what gets into your head if you let it.
Yeah. And it's really cool to be just clicking off all these things where, I'm a very goal oriented person, and I get a huge amount of satisfaction from seeing a problem, clicking it off, seeing a problem, clicking it off. And that's what a road book is all day long. You're bombing down this road and you are just thinking to yourself, okay, there should be a right turn to 7 degrees in 5, 4, 3, 2, boom, there it is. And then you click to the next one. And for most of the day, hopefully that's how it works. But it's pretty fun and really satisfying. It's just kind of this fun puzzle to figure out. And, I'm a good rider, but not one of the fastest riders. So it really evens things out, where if I can navigate well and ride pretty well, I can hang up there a little bit, as opposed to somebody who's an amazingly fast rider, but can't navigate worth shit. And they just end up getting lost really fast.
Riding off into the sunset. That was, I've seen that one play out a few times. And especially when you're watching them on tracking and there's like a 2-minute interval from the updates. And all of a sudden, you see somebody go the other way. Like, no. Well,
and I can tell you right away when somebody passes me and I think I want to follow that guy or I don't want to follow that guy. And more often the case is I don't want to be anywhere near where that guy's going. Yeah. And that person will pass me a couple times in the day because they'll have gotten lost, fall in behind me somewhere, pass me, get lost, fall in behind me, and repeat the cycle.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the highway patrol, or I've heard this before, where they tell you, it's like, okay, well, I'm driving because I'm late at this speed, and they're saying, okay, well, if you drive at 75 miles an hour for an hour versus 60, you're only going to get there 2 minutes faster. Add that whole thing. So I kind of see it as that from what you're describing. It's like, absolutely bomb down this road, but if you miss the next note, the amount of time it's going to take you to make up that time for missing the note is not worth it.
And, if you're bombing down something and the next note is a really straightforward thing, like taking a right on a well-marked road, you can bomb it and go, as fast as you can go. But if you look ahead and you can look at the note, go, this is going to be kind of tricky. Maybe you back it down to 80%. So you make sure you hit that note, because spending a bunch of time running around in circles burns up so much more time than riding a little bit slower. And nothing's worse feeling than coming around a corner, looking into a field and seeing 6 guys riding in circles. And now there are tracks everywhere. Dust is everywhere. You're like, oh man, this is a mess. And then you're just kind of keeping your eyes peeled, looking at that note, trying to decipher it yourself. But you can also really tell when somebody's figured it out and they just have head down and they're riding confidently in a certain direction that you think could be the right way. That's the guy you want to follow. Yeah. It's the guys that aren't riding very confidently in a certain direction that you don't want to follow. More often than not, you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I could see where you can get lucky sometimes, but it's not a great strategy either.
Yeah, for sure.
So, then that's, I feel like that is one of the bigger, it's not just the racing aspect of it. And I think a lot of people, maybe it overcomplicates. Well, I'm not that great a rider and this just looks complicated, to read. Of the people that you've brought into the sport, have any of them like, this isn't for me?
Not one yet. Yeah. No, they get sucked into it, and it's so addicting, and everything from the race format to the people that are doing it and the camaraderie and sitting around and eating and great food somewhere fun down in Mexico or wherever. No, once you get to the point where you're actually signing up for one of these things, I don't think there's a whole lot of turning back at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. You're pretty much done for.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
I think, I understand what you're saying. It's that instant gratification of hitting every note. You hit the note, you see it, you're like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And it feels really good to go through a full day and have hit every waypoint and not gotten lost too much. And really knowing, I still don't understand how people can ride. You hear people ride like 30 minutes in the wrong direction. I've never totally understood that. I guess if there are some other tracks going the wrong way or whatever, but I always feel like I know pretty quickly that things don't feel just right. Maybe if there were some tracks, from previous day or something like that, I guess you could get thrown off. But the Africa Eco Race, a guy rode into another country. He was 60K off the mark, ran out of gas, and I don't know where he was. Not the right spot, though.
No, that's horrible. And that's got to feel, I mean, I've seen it before. I saw it at Baja Rally where the guy I think he withdrew early from the stage, but didn't understand. There was a big language barrier there. And didn't understand, and he rode back to Catavina instead of riding to San Felipe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, we're messaging him on the rally comp, and we're doing all of this stuff because of course he's in the no zone. And we see that he stops at Catavina and he's at the hotel again, and I'm like, so
hey, where is everybody?
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine the feeling of getting back and going, my bivouac was here this morning.
Right. Right. So and then you got a long ride ahead of you.
Dude, that is all the way down, all the way across. And there's no easy, there's trails, there's some stuff that you could, but obviously this guy's not going to know, where to get or how to get across, but
brutal.
Yeah. So you got to be conscious. And it reminds me, I had, at SoCal Roadbook Rally, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had that with Gnarly Dave, where he was letting me lead. And of course I make the mistake. And then he catches me in this wash after, I had decided this isn't the right exit. And he's like, how far are you going to go up this wash? Yeah. I'm like, I'm just looking for the exit. It says all make a right. Yeah. I'm just until I find the exit, So then he's all, no, follow me. And then we go back and then he shows. And again, it's one of those things. You stopped, you overthink it, and you're like, no, there's no way this is it. And then you realize that you missed that, that quick little double note that they're starting to do now, right? Where it's not just, they have an additional direction change in the same tulip.
Yep. Well, it's a really good feeling when you're riding along, you're going, there's got to be an arrow here somewhere, come on, when should I be getting that arrow? And then boop, it comes up and you're like, oh yes, I made it. And there was a time, especially out in the sand dunes, I was one of the first Merzuga rallies that I did. There must have been 10 or 15 guys out in the dunes, and there's a problem when you see 15 different heads and they're just on the top of a dune spread out everywhere, and everybody's looking at each other going, all right, where is this? And
this isn't a safety meeting.
No. And everybody's totally lost. There are tracks everywhere. And I slid down the back of one of the dunes, and then my arrow goes off, and I actually slunk down and went really slowly so nobody would see me, and snuck off on the back and then pinned it. And people had been stuck in that spot for a long time. And I just got lucky that, you keep looking around long enough, that arrow is going to pop up, but that's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah. And then the thing beeps at you. So you're like trying to tell it to shut up so people don't, the rest of the crew doesn't hear you. And that's if you have the ability, because I've seen them, I've seen it with the rally comps where people will be riding in a group, and then they're doing rock, paper, scissors on who's taking the penalty to open the waypoint.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So there's definitely some strategies out there to do that. And obviously, you don't want to give away the recipe, because I'm guessing in something like that, you probably made up 10, 15 minutes on somebody without them even knowing it.
Huge amount of time, like an hour for some. And there were people there lost for a long time. And I just got lucky and slid down the right direction and hit it, and away you go. And you just don't want to look back and just kind of pin it and get out of there. But, there's so much luck involved too. But to some extent you make your own luck too, and, piecing these things together, and it's so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is an interesting one, because there's a lot of times, like you mentioned earlier about following tracks, that making your own luck is continuing to keep up with the road book and not just relying on the tracks. Cause you could be 20 notes down the road and you haven't been scrolling, and then you get to something that's tricky. Now you're really screwed,
Yeah.
So,
and it takes a huge amount of confidence to be riding with a handful of tracks ahead of you and say, those guys aren't going in the right way, and bomb off, and say, I'm going to head a couple degrees this way. And I've done that a few times, and you're always second guessing. And then more often than not, the tracks come back around, and you think, oh man, I've done it. I've gotten in front of a bunch of people. There are no tracks ahead of me. And then they've just turned down the way somewhere, and you end up hitting the tracks again. And, but it's fun. It's a fun game to play out there.
Yeah. And I can definitely see that. Obviously it's the more road books you do, and the more games you get to play.
Yeah.
So something interesting, and then kind of wrap it up. But what do you think, as far as here in the States, like, what are some of the things that you think could help, or what do we need to help kind of grow the sport? I mean, have you thought about that? Like, what would be something that could help?
Yeah. People like you doing this podcast are amazing and inspire people to do this. It's just taking that first leap. And, rally schools, I don't think, the way the laws work in the United States and land ownership, it'd be really difficult. I know the COTA guys have been able to pull it off, kind of, which is an event I'd love to go do, and haven't done, but they run into their own issues with land use and all that stuff. So it really is our events that are going to take place either under the radar and not be fully sanctioned events in the US, or just south of the border. And, I think we have a pretty good plan right now where some of these grassroots events, and people get interested and inspired, and then go and do one of these events in Mexico that aren't too far away. But, making things attainable with equipment, and then just inspiring people to go do it. And people like you and Mike Johnson, that I don't know where we'd be without Rally Comp, because, Erdif, the stuff you use in Dakar and the big world championship events, that's not going to happen at these smaller events. So having a tool like Rally Comp is great, and it'll be really fascinating to see where some of the digital stuff goes. And I've never used a digital road book, but man, I imagine it'd be pretty slick once they get it all figured out, which it seems like they're really close to making that stuff happen. Yeah,
I feel like I definitely think it's getting a lot closer. I know Willem Avenant has been working really hard on his setup, and now offering the two different systems. So I agree. I think it's getting closer, because I don't know about the GPS accuracy yet. I know there's things. It was actually Matthew Glade that told me about this Garmin unit that you Bluetooth. It's the compass, and you Bluetooth it to your device, and it's feeding it the data. So it's obviously it's more accurate. But
something like the Garmin XT that I've got on my adventure bikes, that's super bright. That was the always what I have seen with the iPads, tough to see in the middle of the day. And then, man, there are always electronic gremlins. The paper you can literally ride in your hand if you had to. Say your road book gets all smashed up or whatever, and you can manually turn that. It's easy to see, but there's got to be a better way. And I'm sure, between what Willem's working on and whoever else, it'll be cool to get that kind of stuff. And you could even get real-time direction changes if there's a flood or there's an accident out on the course. They can change that stuff up on the fly, which would be pretty amazing, and not having to cut and paste changes to the road book, the night before. All that stuff would be pretty amazing. I'm sure it'll get there. I'm still waiting for the heads up display in my goggles that just has the arrow pop up and, like a hologram, take me over the dunes. That'll be pretty slick. Maybe past my time, but we'll see.
I don't know. You never know. I mean, I know they've been working on that for motorcycles, on the road going stuff. BMW, I think, had a helmet like that already. I've heard of a few of them, but they require a bigger shield, obviously not the goggles, which, I don't know about that working on the.
Yeah, someday.
Yeah, maybe a monocle or something like that. And then
maybe it's Elon's next project. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to sign up for the beta on that one. I may have early access, but I don't know if I'm going to do that.
That's right. I'll let you test it first.
Nah, that's cool. Thanks. That's actually something. I don't know. The one I'm excited about, and I'm not sure if you've caught wind of it yet, is the Battleborn Rally in Nevada.
No, not heard of that.
I maybe heard the name Kent Choma. No. He's a competitor. He's gone to, I think, all but one Baja Rally. Great, him and done the Sonora Rally, done all that stuff, and him and Jen, his wife now. Yep. They're doing a rally in I think it's like northeast of Reno, in May. He's actually working on that. Dave, I know that David Pearson has been up there with him doing some road books.
Yep.
And last we talked, they were getting pretty close. But
well, any rally is a good rally. I hope it's the hardest part. A is finding the land area to be able to do it, and B, finding some cool terrain. So, if it's just dirt roads and the sagebrush. It's better than being at work, but it's, I think you got to have some sand and, I don't know, it's just fun to get up in the mountains, and varied terrain is what I think makes a lot of these rallies so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Being able to see these different things, not the typical roads that everybody gets to see, the typical areas, some challenging stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely,
that Rocky Mountain Rally that Chris Braun helped put on with Phil was so cool and had such killer terrain. I would love to see that come back some point. I think it got shut down from the BLM, it just started to get too big. That's where I first met Andrew Short and rode with him down there, and where he really got interested in rally. And it grew from 10, 15 guys to 20, 30, 40. All of a sudden it's hard to fly under the radar at that point, but man, the terrain down there was so cool, red rocks and a little bit up in the mountains, and just super rad.
Yeah, man,
it's selfishly close to home for me. Just 3.5 hours away.
Just saying.
Yeah, just saying.
Yeah. And, I think that I got to give, we talked about it before. I got to give Mike Graves from Kota Rally props for that, because I think he put the sport of rally in front of the BLM in a different way. And I think that, at least my opinion is that he kind of created the recipe. And now what's going to happen is it's an easier presentation to all of these. Look, it's been done up here before. It's been done here. Here are the biggest differences. I've seen that even down in Baja when, they were organizing these events and they have to go talk to the city. They have to go talk to the locals, that kind of thing. And how it's actually pretty quick to differentiate from what people see of trophy trucks going down Zoo Road with, 3 feet of space until the people clear and all of this stuff, to what rally actually is, where it's really just more about the competitors.
Totally.
Out there. So,
well, and huge props to guys like Mike and anybody who throws their hat in the ring to organize a rally or even, these grassroots events. It just takes so much more effort than I think people give credit to. And I know the guys that put together that Kota rally. I don't know him personally, have traded messages with him here and there, but I salute them for the spirit that they're trying to make this thing happen and jump through all these hoops with the land managers. And sounds like the first couple of events that they got off the ground were pretty cool. I was bummed to see this last one cancel and maybe it'll come back in a different form or whatever.
Yeah.
But, and they covered some really cool terrain, it sounds like, too, at least from the photos that I saw.
Yeah. And that was, it's, I feel like it's an interesting thing. You you kind of get into the head of the road book creators, right? That's something that's been talked about commonly. Yep. And Mike, I think, is already building a unique event. Like his isn't like, there's some sightseeing stuff and some big open terrain and all that stuff. And then there's things that get mixed in there that make you question the bike you rode.
Yep.
For the event.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. That's not one you want to take your 450 RFR on, probably.
Yeah, I think Rally Light, I think that's
yeah, for sure. And I'm building one of those just for an event kind of like this. Who, and I mentioned it before, but Chris Braun writes such good road books. I think he has a really good balance between the nerdy engineering technical side and the passion of riding a motorcycle and understanding what really makes sense and what makes for a compelling road book, and takes you down some of these cool washes and up onto these great sites and understands what's too hard and not hard enough. And so I hope he stays involved in some of these and people pull them into their world and get him to write some road books for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be awesome. I mean, it is a bit of an art form. It takes some patience and a lot of visualization, I think.
Yeah, it totally is. And it's so interesting. We had in the early days down there in Green River, we had road books from two different guys, Phil and Chris. And man, the road books couldn't have been more different. And you just, and it was kind of before I thought about that. I thought, hey, a road book's a road book. But boy, people think about just taking a turn through a wash is totally different from one guy to the next. And just thinking about the terrain and what's going through the mind of the rider. They've just gone through this really, really hard section. Should we give them a rest for 3K on a dirt road a little bit, or should we throw them into some more gnarly stuff right away, or what that is? But yeah, it's for sure an art form.
Yeah. And then you think, the whoops and some of the rougher terrain, for some people, depending on your riding ability, it's easy. And for others, it's extremely difficult. And so, that becomes the other side of it, but I mean, I guess eventually you start to recognize like, okay, well, the person that wrote this, created the road book, obviously he's, more of an A-level rider. So I've got the rougher trail and I've got the smoother trail. I'm going to put my money on that he probably picked the rougher trail because it's no big deal.
And, in the Africa Eco Race, when I did it in 2018, they had some cool sections where they said, all right, the sand dunes in this area, this ended up being really difficult. So we're going to give people the option to take this easier route. And they had some changes to the road book. But they said, if you want to stick with the original option, we'll give you bonus time for doing that. And that had everybody looking at each other going, oh man, what are you going to do? And that was a cool element to it for sure. And so I'm interested. I know in Dakar coming up, they are going to have some different elements. And I think it's fun that they are being progressive and changing things up. For the life of me, I can't understand how this next one's going to work. I haven't looked at it too hard, but it's separate bivouacs and timing and I don't know what, but I'm glad they're innovating and thinking about some of these changes. Some are going to hit and some are going to miss, but I'm glad that they're changing things up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. I see that they're obviously, as they grow, there's been things that, or as they progress, there's been decisions, right? Like the tire choice that was criticized profusely.
That was a miss.
I don't agree with that. And it was Skylar Howes that kind of turned my eyes, and it's a matter of, the experience in riding. I've ridden bikes for a long time, but I've never raced them. So to me, a tire is a tire. You just make it last. But like he said, at the speeds that they have to ride and that you guys would have to ride at, you need that tire fresh. What's going on, guys? Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. All right. Are you looking to promote your brand to a worldwide audience on the podcast? Drop us a line at podcast@chasingwaypoints.com and let's talk. See what we can do about getting you some more ears for your company and getting the word out worldwide.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter for me, but, I always thought it was interesting. I'd go into, like at Dakar, we'd go into a marathon stage and I would look at the top guys' bikes in the Parc Fermé, and my gosh, some of those tires on the top 10 guys were so torched after one day. It looked like a year's worth of my riding that they did in like 4 hours, and you can see how that would make a difference. But at the end of the day, I just don't think you're going to slow those guys down, and it's just going to be dangerous because they're going to ride the friggin' tire right off the rim before they slow down.
Yeah, I think that was something that's they're going to find a way. I mean, they tried to do it in Formula One. They put them V6 turbos and then made the car narrower. All it did was increase the corner speed because now they had more room. So all of these things, I figure it's going to be the same thing, and to a point maybe even a little dangerous that. Okay, well, the speed limit, I've talked about with Lauren Lassard and a couple others. It's like, okay, so the speed limit is there. Great. Okay, if you're not doing 160 kilometers per hour, the guy behind you is. And you have no business doing 160 kilometers per hour here but the guy behind you knows he can make up that time as long as he gets up onto that speed limit. And so now you got people riding in over their head, and maybe not the top guys. The top guys understand that, but you got the guy that's behind them that's the AB rider. Trying to make a name. Now, you could run into issues there. And I mean, the one that I caught wind of this past year at Sonora Rally was the random speed zone that I noticed out in the middle of nowhere. There would be a speed zone I could not figure why.
Yeah.
And so that was an interesting thing. And I don't know if it was something like if it was part of the game. I'm assuming it was part of the game, because they weren't very long.
Yeah.
And so
I guess maybe sometimes they were by like random farmhouses out in the middle of nowhere, but those are the kind of things that catch you off guard. And, for sure, it's in the road book, so you should be able to see it. And if you're keeping up with your notes, you should see it, but it doesn't make total sense either. Typically a slow zone is going to be by some construction equipment or some corral or somebody's house, or or going into a village. You understand you're expecting one of those speed zones, but when you come up on one without one in there, but and that's also one maybe the organization can say, hey, just FYI, we put in these random speed zones here to try to slow things down. At least you would be looking extra critically at your road book, thinking about random speed zones.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of give that heads up of, they're out there, and it seemed like they were short enough that if you didn't anticipate it, you could drag the wheel through the entirety of the speed zone, depending on how fast you were going, because they weren't very long. Yeah,
that's where I always got caught out. And and there's a big difference I felt in the rally comp to the Erdif. Like the Erdif was way more forgiving in the speed zone. Like the Sentinel would go on and you'd have enough time if you grabbed all your brake to get down to the speed you needed to be, where rally comp, I felt like the second I heard that, I was toast.
Yeah.
So I just had to be more cognizant of those speed zones when I'm in an event with a rally comp.
They are. I asked about that specifically. And from my understanding is that the ERTF unit will, okay, here's the start of the speed zone. You've got 100 meters to rope it in, or you've got a certain distance. And that's where people start playing chicken with that line in the sand.
Yeah. And I did too. And I just would kick myself because I was like, what am I trying to save? Like fractions of a second by hauling ass into a spot where I know I need to slow down. I just need to, and then I just racked up all these speeding penalties, and it's just part of the game.
Yeah. I mean, it blows my mind that, that's what they're hunting for. The top guys are literally hunting for that, but I mean, I guess when you go through the Dakar, right, last year, right, what was it, 5 seconds going into the last stage?
Yeah, right.
When you race that many days and it's 5 seconds on the last stage, that's supposed to be basically a parade lap.
Yeah. It counts. And then you're going through these little villages and you're right on the limit of your, the speed zone, it's beep, 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 beep. And you can see yourself creeping up on somebody, but you don't want to, it's kind of mad thing. It's like, really, am I really doing this? What am I doing?
Yeah. Oh man. I can only imagine that little frustration. And then you sleep just a little bit, you just back it off, but it's just enough to give them a few feet.
Yeah. Well, I need to figure out some kind of software hack that allows me to just have a little bit more leeway in that rally comp.
I don't know, man. Mike keeps that thing wrapped up pretty tight, which is good. I mean, it's how it needs to be, but yeah, I don't know.
For sure.
I think I think the money, and this was the interesting one to wrap it up here, but, that the bikes that are now fly by wire, using, what I'm assuming is GPS, speed, and basically having a rev limiter or a speed limiter that they can activate for the speed, like set a speed zone.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, you're getting in the Formula One zone there where they're pressing all these buttons and making it so they don't speed. I mean, hey, technological innovation is part of it. Not part of it for me, but for the, $1 million race teams, absolutely. But that would be a huge benefit to be able to press a button and then sit right at the limit when you're going through, because some of those speed zones are pretty decent size. Yeah. And it might mean the difference between you staying in contact with somebody or just getting out of sight of them. Mm-hmm. And, so that's helpful.
Yeah. And I've seen it. I've seen it in Baja and racing where you go down the highway and the speed zones. And as soon as you turn off the road and it's back to racing, those few feet that you gave up it takes a lot of work to get those few feet back and then to catch and then to actually make the pass. Yeah.
Especially if it's dusty, and there's no wind. If you can pass somebody in that little speed zone and you get 10 feet ahead of them, you're now 500 meters in front of them because they can't catch you with all the dust that's flying. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be right out of that sweet spot, and it's just going to be that much easier to put it in. But but then you're playing now. It's the game of chicken, right? Between you and that competitor, and what the speed zone actually is.
Yeah.
So nice. All right. So what's next for you?
Ski season, ski a bunch of powder. I think my motorbike riding is winding down a little bit. I'm sure I'll get some fun rides in, and then looking at maybe Desafio Route 40. I think that's in the spring next year. Mm-hmm. So that might work out pretty well. I followed Happy Dave on that and looked like cool terrain. And I talked to the guys at Bass and they said the food was great. The organization was great. So if I get lucky, maybe I can go do that in April. And then I don't think dates are out yet for Sonora, are they? I was bugging Darren about it, but he said nothing yet. I'll wait till that comes out publicly. And that's always a easy and quick hit. And I'm psyched to see that thing come back to kind of the level that it was. It was fun having all the big boys there, but it was a little bit too much maybe. Yeah. So seeing that come back to its original form will be great. And with a little luck, maybe get down to Argentina. We'll see.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. Do a little more traveling.
Yeah, for sure.
So ski or snowboard? Ski?
Ski. I've got a snowboard. I just suck at it. And I never, when the snow's good, I'm always want to be on my skis.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. What did you say? I've been wanting to learn how to snowboard, but I really don't need another hobby.
Yeah. More time, more stuff. Come visit me in Utah, and I'll make it a little bit easier on you.
Awesome.
For sure.
Well, perfect. Well, enjoy the rest of the trip. I know you got to turn around and ride back, right?
No, I'm ditching my bike here for a while, and I'll either ship it back or I'll come up with another dumb plan to ride it home sometime in the spring, but probably going to leave it here for a little while and, give me some time. Half the fun is cooking up these ideas. So if anybody has some good ideas, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I think I just, so it sounds like you rode to the first corner. So now I'm thinking you got 3 more corners to go. Head south, no map, and then head across to Cali.
Could do that. Could do the Trans Am Trail again. I really love that. That was super fun. And I don't know. Always more rides out there.
I know, right? Awesome. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, yeah, we'll do the Trans Am on another episode.
I love it. Victor, thanks for putting this together and including me, and always love listening. And, I think you do, like I said before, a huge service to the rally community to keep people informed, engaged, and inspired. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, man.
Awesome, man. Enjoy.
Thanks. See you.
All right. See ya. All right. So there you have it. That was Nathan Rafferty. So pretty awesome. I actually didn't know he was into skiing and worked on that. So very interesting. And as you guys have heard, done a lot of traveling already, and already, whether it was on the adventure bike or in the rally side of things, and his experience. And I know you guys caught it. I know you heard it, but he said it is everybody he's gotten into the sport. Nobody's really backed out of it. Everybody's still doing it. They're enjoying it. They've gotten bitten by the bug. So if you're listening to this and kind of thinking like, well, what are you waiting for? Rally light setups are pretty easy. Jay from Jay Speed Shop put up a couple videos, a couple reels on his Instagram about, a rally light setup. I've got some stuff coming on showing you guys what I'm running. It doesn't take a tower. It doesn't take a lot of big fancy equipment and fancy things that you can do. There's a lot of great stuff out there. As mentioned earlier, I did mention about Willem Avenant and his setup. Willem Avenant Racing, the tablet setups. He's got one that's like a pro tablet, and then one that's more of a recreational tablet. I'm thinking maybe I'll end up with one of those on the 501 and just to try it. And again, we're not going racing. We're just going to go. If you know what, the awesome thing would be doing like a, how do we say, like a professional student. There's all these like mini rallies that you do in school, right? And when you go to a rally school. So I think that even just signing up to do those, right? It's the perfect, just a couple days, do some road books, get some coaching, and then maybe go do another one of those. And then like Nathan said, you kind of progress, right? You do a couple of rally schools. You're starting to feel pretty good. Okay. Now you do some practicing, and now you sign up for that 5-day event. You do a couple of those 5 or 6 day events, and then next thing you know, you're starting to eyeball the Dakar or one of the other, many events around the world. It doesn't have to be the Dakar. There's other smaller events as well that you'll get to see. So I think that's one of those things that it's easy enough to grow into. It's just a matter of taking the first step, right? It's just like anything else. So with that being said, guys, remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Looking forward to our next one coming up. Remember, if you are out riding, do not forget to tag us at Chasing Waypoints. Hashtag Chasing Waypoints. And if you haven't already, get on over to the website. Get signed up for the newsletter, the Bivouac. North America's rally raid and adventure riding newsletter. Hey, let's have some fun. Let's find out what you guys up to. Let's get you featured. If you're a brand and looking to get supported, get some eyeballs, get some ears on your business. Absolutely. Hit us up. Send us a message at podcast@Chasing Waypoints. But anyway, that is a wrap. Remember, shiny side up. See you guys.